Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Coaching Program. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I train people for improved personal and professional development, offering my assistance for those ready to develop their goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. And this podcast is one tool I use to complete my mission. How it works: in 10 minutes time, when the 10-minute mark hits on this podcast, you'll have a life lesson that you can take away with you at this point right here and apply it to something going on in your life immediately. And if this lesson in this episode sounds familiar, like something you're already trying to do that just doesn't know how to work itself out, maybe I can help. Go to our website, 10minutelifecoach.com, and see if there's a way that we can connect so that we can help work on this together. This podcast is powered by the $10 Life Coaching Program. More on that project in just a moment, but first, today's lesson. This is episode 143, and welcome to the podcast. I am going to welcome you into the podcast because if you're a longtime listener, you'll notice something very different in the delivery for today. Number one, there's music. There's an intro music. There's a pre-recorded intro that I'm doing to help me work on my workflow and getting this done a little bit quicker. Now, every week in the past, I have just turned on the mic, pulled up my script, and read the opener and then went into the details of the lesson. This week, I am not doing that. I am changing things up and making things a little bit easier because the actual lesson deals with what I'm doing and why I did it. Now, I need to explain to you what the whole purpose of the brand new open is, and you'll hear at the end of the lesson an audio cue that it's over. I have been reviewing my workflow for a lot of different things. For my work at my day job, I'm always constantly going over what's happening in the day to make it more efficient. For my business, I do the same thing, but sometimes things get so familiar and so easy that you get so much into that groove that I've a little lacked off on that in the business sense, and especially in the recording of the podcast. My plan is to do more recording, do more media in the business, more podcasts specifically, adding in some video things here and some more visual things here. And so that means I'm going to take on more ideas into my head to turn into more actual physical things, or digital things, if you will. And in reality, that becomes even more work that needs to be done. So how am I going to get more work done in the limited amount of time I already have? And I'm limited by adding more to it. Well, I had to evaluate my workflow completely for my work. And I do that fairly often anyway. Like I said, it doesn't really get put into practice so much in the business sense where things just get into the swing of things. You know, once you learn how to do something, you just kind of do it because it works and you have your time to do that. But since I'm going a little bit bigger in the business, I have to do a full evaluation, or I did a full evaluation. What I'm working on now is fully upgrading when necessary in the bits and pieces and when possible. The lesson for you today is just that. You need to evaluate regularly how you are handling yourself, how you're handling your business, how you're handling your work, how you're handling your play, how you're handling your relationships. Anything that's important to you is worth taking a minute to take a look at how it works out. If you're doing great in something, then move on to the next thing. Just keep on going. Don't mess with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, if you're looking at something and you see where issues may apply, that's where you take a look at what you can do to fix it, to upgrade. I've been using that word a lot this year. This year's my word is upgrade, which is why we're doing more things in the business in the audio sense, making that a bigger upgrade. But you need to look at what you need to do, and when necessary, know you need to change things. If you need to upgrade by eliminating some processes, that's one thing. You need to upgrade by putting more effort and more resources into a process. That's another thing. But you also have to make sure you're upgrading with the wisdom that you're doing it at the right time, in the right place, and sometimes with the right people. It's a very simple thing to do, and it's so simple, I've been doing it all my life, if you will, but I've been doing a review. I used to do a weekly review, a very detailed review every single weekend based on a fairly detailed review every single day. And I did that for about 5 or so years as I was growing into my personal development business part. It's something I did sporadically while I was just learning it. But once it turned it into a business, it's something I had to do over and over again. And then, because of just having a very bad week, I stopped for a while. I just decided I'm done. I'm not going to do it. And I saw the difference in the months that I did not do that weekly review very religiously. And of course, in the days I didn't do it every single day, it became a challenge to move forward. It became a burden to just be who I was, to be honest. And it's not really a part of making sure you have every single moment scripted, but it really is a part of keeping an eye on what's happening, just as if you're driving down the road. Most of us get that sort of road hypnotism where we start in one destination and we end up in another destination. We don't necessarily remember anything past getting in the car and making it to the stop, because so much of the road, so much of the drive is just memory from muscle memory and mental memory, if you will. You just kind of follow it along. Just keep on going like normal. It doesn't have to be anything out of the ordinary. So if nothing happens out of the ordinary, you don't necessarily remember it. If they don't change the billboards after a while, you stop to notice those billboards, unless it's something that you really are into. If you don't see an accident on the road, you don't really think much about the commute. If commute is more or less the same, if it's always slow and it's slow that day, or it's always quick and it's slow that day, you don't see a change. You don't think about what's going on there. And if you're not actively evaluating it when things don't change, you don't notice things haven't changed and you see how things get stale. So it's good to take some time out to actively evaluate things, even if it's something that's boring and mundane, just to see how it goes. Maybe someday you may need to explain that process to someone else so they can do it properly, or at least to your standards. Maybe you're not even doing it properly. Or maybe it's just a matter of something that you want to really pass on to a future generation on how things work out. Maybe it really is important. It's important to know how it works. And in the time we have right here and now, it's important to know how it works so you can be better at it, or be worse at it, or even find someone else to do. I evaluated a lot of stuff about a year ago when I got the diagnosis, or my wife actually got the diagnosis and then told me about it when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. A year later, she's cancer-free and she's still dealing with some issues, but life really changed that day because we knew we had some struggles to deal with. We had to evaluate our life. We had to go through a lot of different things that we didn't necessarily want to touch about. We had to go through finances to figure out how we're going to pay for just basic things, let alone the other things. We had to go through the processes we did to get things back and forth. We have a 6-year-old and we have a 22-year-old, or now 23-year-old. So, but at the time, the older one was graduating college and moving on to grad school, and he had to kind of figure that out on his own, and we didn't have much in a way that we can offer him for help. But the 6-year-old, at the time 5-year-old, pretty much was your typical 5-year-old and was being your typical 5-year-old and was needing all the things that go on with that. That meant I had to pick up a lot of the slack in a lot of the things. That meant I had to evaluate how much of my business would be put into my business. I had to evaluate how much time I could spend at work, extra time and normal time, because obviously I was in charge of picking the little one up and getting her places to everything. There was no help. There was no assistance. There was some help. There was assistance. But in the basic sense, it was just me as opposed to me and my wife sharing the duties. Household duties, child care and duties, making sure that bills got paid duties. So what happened? We evaluated the situation. We changed up the process. We upgraded some things where it could happen. We found money to hire a person to take care of the yard, which I actually enjoyed doing, but I didn't have time for with everything else going on. And it also helped out with the business as well, because that meant I wasn't focusing on something that might have been enjoyable, but had more time for business. You need to make sure you're taking the right time, the proper amount of time to evaluate what's going on in your life. From there, see if you need an upgrade. If you don't, awesome. Don't upgrade. You're fine. You don't need to change if things are working out right and you don't see any major problems on the horizon that could give you some fault. If you do need change, then plan your upgrades accordingly. Do you have the ability to do it right now? Do you have the resources to do it right now? Is the timing right now? The best time to change a tire that you know is running flat is before you go on a very long journey, because the time that it will go dead on you will be somewhere in the middle of the journey. That will be somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Make sure you're keeping a good evaluation of what you have going on and keep eye for the right times to make those upgrades if they're necessary. So that was definitely different. It's new to me, newish to me. We used to have a very big produced 10-minute life coach way back starting from 1 through episode 44 in the first iteration. But that was like 7-8 years ago. We changed it up when we brought it back to make it fresh and easy to do. But now it's figured time for a bit of an upgrade, time for a chance to give you something a bit more audibly pleasing and make it the workflow a little bit easier. As we said, we're going to add in more, or at least I'm going to add in more audio into my production in my company, and we're going to make sure everything is standardized, everything is kind of working in a way that's modernized so we can be appealing to those out there. Now, we're still going to keep the same format as we did. We did the open, and the open was exactly the same. It's always been about 60 seconds long. You have your 10-minute lesson, which now you know is really just about 9 minutes. And then you have the sales pitch and the also extra stuff with housekeeping, whatever. This podcast, of course, is sponsored and brought to you by the $10 Life Coach. And we've been talking about that ad nauseum in the last couple of weeks, and we still hadn't quite nailed down the actual platform to work it on. But if you're ready to get in on this, I've just figured out a pretty simple way. Just send me an email. Send me an email. I'll talk to you via email. We'll get your numbers. We'll start chatting back and forth. We'll put you in the platforms because there's a couple, and we'll kind of see which way they go. And you'll really want to get in this on the ground floor because this is going to be a great opportunity for all of us on the early end to reestablish this community and to bring in more people to help them along the way. This is group coaching the real way, essentially gathering together and doing it the buddy system, all of us together. Send an email to the official email box for the $10 Life Coach, which is $10lifecoach@gmail.com. Also, send emails to the official email for the 10-Minute Life Coach at 10minutelifecoach@gmail.com. Yes, we just went straight up Gmail. We will probably at some point in time put in something for a more professional, if you will, email address. But right now, I'm checking everything via the Google, and that's the best way to keep things separated per all things going on. Check out the main website, though, 10minutelifecoach.net, and you can see all the features we have, including ways to get in contact with us so that if you need a little help getting that next thing going, we can do one-on-one coaching, we can do real group coaching there, or you just get simple accountability coaching, something that's just a matter of checking in and making sure you're hitting all your markers. You'd be surprised how important it is just having someone to call you up and nag you for a couple minutes every so often. When you don't even have that, it can be a fulfilling situation. It can be something in your upgrade that you find that is so great to your spirit. Once you find someone else is putting it on their table, our table, to make sure you're getting things done. Now, you still have to get the things done, but it's not up to you to keep track of getting them done and get them done. We're going to keep you accountable. We're going to make sure the triggers are there and that you are kept on task. Awesome. I think it is. So with that, we're still learning the format and doing some new things as we build this thing up. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast here. Hopefully you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did or didn't, let me know. I'm not sure about the audio cue out. That's what all the big podcasters use, but we're going to test it for a few more weeks and see how it goes. Thank you for joining us for episode 143, and be here next week for 144. Share this podcast with friends and other like-minded people who are looking for those upgrades, looking to make an improvement into their life, whether personal life or business life, because we're going to walk you through the whole shebang. Thank you for being you, and I'm going to thank you in advance for being here for next week and the 10-Minute Life Coach.